Hey everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal. Hope you guys are doing great, and thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Brent Thomas if you're new to the show, and I'm thrilled that you're here. Thank you for all your love and support, and continuing to introduce others to the Paranormal Portal. Got a fantastic show for you guys today. I am joined by a friend whom I've known in this arena for a number of years, and we're going to go on a journey through his encounters and his experiences with both cryptids and ghostly haunting stuff, supernatural. So I want you guys to help me welcome Mr. Tex to the show. He comes to us from Tex's Front Porch YouTube channel, and he's joining us today and going to take us on a ride. So buckle up. We're going in. Hey, Tex, welcome to the show, brother. Thanks for coming on today.
Oh man, I love it. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, and it's always an incredible pleasure to talk to you. You and I have known each other for a number of years. We've appeared on many shows together in the past and stuff, and of course, Bigfoot Odyssey and others. And we just did Rob's BMR channel, and that was just a few days ago. So it's great that we can connect again and have another talk. You've had an incredible amount of experiences yourself. Now, you've been on the show before where you went into length and detail about your dogman experience when you were a young lad, but that's not the end of your journey, huh?
No. I kept that quiet for so long, and up until really about 2016, I think it was.
Uh-huh.
And when I came out of the proverbial closet for that one,
Yeah.
and then got involved with some people and ended up, getting asked to do some field research for, on the Bigfoot side of things. I'm like, yeah, sure. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
And here I am. It's I've had daylight sightings. I've collected some of the best evidence come out of the field in years. And it's just, it's amazing because I never thought, if you'd have asked me 10 years ago, I never would have guessed I'd have my own YouTube channel talking about Bigfoot, having seen the thing and run into him. And I just, man, I tell you, it's been a ride. It's been a ride, and it continues to be so,
Yeah. So take us through some of these experiences that you've had with these sightings. What was going on and where were you?
Well, I do my research out in Brown Springs, Oklahoma, and it's right on the Red River.
Okay.
And it's cool because it's only about an hour away from my house. Of course, I'm here in Texas. But when I first started going out, I went with an old boy out there, and I mean, you talk about hit the ground running. I was hooked because we're getting out of the truck. We're parked on the edge of a hayfield, and we got a thin little tree line on the left, and we're pointed down into the river bottoms.
Okay.
I had my truck. We get out of the stop truck, get out of the truck. He's getting his cameras and all that kind of stuff, and I don't have nothing with me but my cell phone, and I just turn it off, put it in my back pocket, because I'm just there to. I'm honestly, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, Bigfoot's in there. I was kind of, yeah, okay, whatever, it's just a walk in the woods for me. And so I'm standing outside my truck, and I'm kind of looking around, getting the lay of the land because I don't want to get lost down these river bottoms,
Right.
And I'm looking through this tree line, and there's a wheat field on the other side. And I'm looking out in this wheat field, and I see this thing stand up in the middle of this wheat field, look around like he's fixing to cross the street, look both ways.
Yeah.
And just take off running down into the river bottoms.
Oh, wow.
And I could see him from about the waist up until he hit the fire break. And then I saw him for about 2 steps head to toe. And he was, unless this old boy hired an 8-foot basketball player and put him in a hairy suit, I saw Bigfoot.
Wow.
Because we went, and I'm going back to my dogman encounter, I guess it tempered me. It got me, I don't know, because when I saw it, my exact words were, I'll be damned. There goes one right there.
And you're like,
And,
man, this research stuff is pretty easy.
yeah, this is cool. Let's just get out of my truck, you know. But and he's like, you're like the third person that's seen that. I can't ever see that one, and blah blah blah, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm trying to make myself believe what I had just seen.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, is it really, like you said, is it really this easy? You know, I mean, what are they doing? Running all over this place down here?
Right.
You know, and I'm like, all right, well, so we went and continued down in the river bottoms.
Mm-hmm.
We go down and we take a left, which would cross his path that he ran into. And we're walking down through the bottoms, and it's a floodplain is what it is. So when the river gets out of banks, it has a place to go. We start hearing this thing up on the ridge. We'll hear noise, you know, through walking. And then we'll hear, now I know some people will die on this hill. Some people won't, that they tree knock or they mouth pop. Okay. My guess is they probably do both.
Okay.
But it was doing whatever it was doing. And then we would walk about another 100 yards and then we would hear it again. And our theory was that it was pushing a family group in front of us so we wouldn't walk up on them. Mm-hmm. And he was like a sentinel. And I think what happened was we were on the side of that thin tree line, and they're very intelligent, but I don't think they're intelligent enough. I almost think they have the mindset of, if they can't see us, we can't see them type thing, you know, like a little kid.
Right.
And I think that's what happened, because I don't think he could, thought he was in the clear because we were on the other side of the tree line, but no doubt he knew we were there.
Mm.
But so anyway, that was pretty much that first encounter. And after that, I was hooked, you know, and I started going back. And he didn't want to go at night. Okay. I did. So I started eventually going out by myself, and I would spend days and nights at a time out there by myself. Mm-hmm. And I started having encounters. Things would start coming up to camp. I would hear things. I was getting rocks thrown at me. I would, you know, and all this kind of stuff. Well, one thing that's out there that I was really fascinated with is there's an old graveyard that sits up about 100 yards off of the road, mm-hmm. up on a hill. And the youngest death date in that graveyard is 1924.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it was supposedly originally a Indian burial mound. And then the guy that, he was Native American. He owned this place, but he wasn't a real good guy. He supposedly owned like over 100 slaves, and he used that as his family burial ground. And then the community started using it, and it's really decrepit. It's been vandalized and everything. Oh. But so there's a lot of energy up there. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to go up there, and I went up there during the day with that other fellow, and I thought, man, I got to go up here at night. And I was a co-host on his show for a few years, and I shot my mouth off once on air, and I said I was going to go up there and do a solo investigation in the cemetery at night. Mm. And I'm one of these guys that if I say I'm going to do something, I'm usually going to do it, no matter how stupid it is.
Okay.
So I went down there. This was the first time I'd ever been down there at night, and I went down there, and to do this, And I drive up to the bottom of the cemetery and I park my truck and I get out and I'm hearing footfalls all around me in the woods. And I hear a few whoops over to my right. I'm like, man, I am freaking surrounded.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And I'm thinking, I don't know what this is, but there's a lot of them, whatever it is. And I'm like, I just don't feel good about this. Maybe this wasn't the smartest decision I've ever made. So I backed out, and I didn't, at that time down there, you didn't have cell service. And so I backed out. I drove back up where I had service, and I made a few phone calls, and everybody I called tried to talk me out of doing it. And I was like, no, I said I was going to do this. And it wasn't just that I said I was going to do it. I felt like I needed to do it on a personal level.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And so I loaded back up and went back down there, and I got out, and I could still hear a few footfalls, but I didn't feel like I was surrounded. You know, I thought, okay, we're going to go ahead and do this. So I started up the trail with a little bitty pen light, a pocket knife, and a cell phone with no service. That's all I had. And so I hit my voice recorder on my phone, and started up the trail. And I'm walking up, and you hear me say on the audio, and I've got this on the channel somewhere. It's a long time ago, but it's there. But you hear me say, okay, I just heard a little growl over here to my left, kind of had a little purr to it. Mm-hmm. And this comes into play later. So remember that. So I get up to the top, right there at the top of the entrance of the cemetery. And I'm looking around. I got this little bitty pin light. I mean, this is not one of these LED good little flashlights. This is a little pin light with a bulb on the end of it. I mean, it's bad.
Sure.
And I don't know what I was thinking. I'm not the smartest. I'm not always the sharpest sandwich in the box. Okay. So anyway,
as far as sandwiches go, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm looking around over my left shoulder back in the trees, and I catch this eye shine about 2.5, 3 feet off the ground. And these eyes were about as big around as silver dollars and about 8 inches apart.
Oh, that's quite a spread.
And I'm like, okay, this is cool, you know. And it starts playing peekaboo behind the tree with me, you know. And I'm like, all right, this is pretty cool, you know, because I think I'm seeing a Bigfoot. Because I'm going through my mind, what else could have an eye spread like that?
Right.
It's narrowed down to horses and cows to be that big.
Sure.
But to be that low on the ground really doesn't make a lot of sense unless, you know, one of them was laying down. That don't happen very often. And there wasn't, that place don't have like just cattle roaming around, you know,
right.
Or even horses for that matter. And so I'm looking at this thing and I'm watching it. I'm like, and I'm thinking, this is pretty cool, you know, all right, you know, like this is what I came here for. And then it stood up. And when it hit about shoulder height or so, I decided it was time to go.
Yeah. Wow.
And I said, well, maybe it's, you know, I said, oh, blankety blank, maybe it's time to go back out, you know.
Sure.
So I walked back down, got in my truck, no further incidents, right?
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward a few years later, and I'm skipping over a bunch of years, but I want to get to this story.
Yep.
I took some friends out there. They're a paranormal team, mother and daughter group. Great. They're not doing paranormal anymore, but they're a great team.
Okay.
And they wanted to go to the cemetery, and they had been up there once by themselves, and I chewed them out for it. And but because they had no idea what else was up there, they were just going hunt ghosts in the cemetery.
Sure.
So anyway, they wanted to go, and they wanted to go at night. I said, if you're going to go at night, you go with me. So we went, and it was me and a buddy of mine, Bob Van Buren, and them two, and Amy's husband, and they were in their truck and we were in mine. So we pull up at the bottom of the cemetery, and Jason McLean is back at camp, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we pull up to the bottom of the cemetery, and all of a sudden we're surrounded by 5 cop cars.
Oh.
I mean, we hadn't even got out of the truck. It was like, whoosh. I'm like, what in the world is going on? So we gingerly get out of the truck, don't shoot out there. And it turned out to be 3 sheriff's deputies and 2 tribal police. This is on, public lands and reservation, and all this kind of stuff. So we get out of the truck. They're like, what are y'all doing here? And I kind of grin at them. And one of them looks at me and he goes, are y'all out here Bigfoot hunting? I said, well, yeah. I said, we're the Bigfoot guys and they're a paranormal team. I was going to take them up the cemetery. Well, we start having a conversation. I ended up talking to these cops for about 45 minutes. And they tell me, which is unusual for them to do this. They tell me that 2 of their officers had Bigfoot sightings in that area.
Oh. And
the main one I was talking to said he had a paranormal experience in the cemetery back when he was a teenager. So, and they asked us if we were armed, and none of us were armed, but Jason had a pistol back at camp, and that's what we told him. He said, well, we encourage everybody to carry a sidearm up here.
Oh.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
He said, yeah, you can't carry a long gun unless you have a hunting license, but you can carry a sidearm, and we encourage that. I'm like, okay, why?
Yeah.
And they proceed to tell me that, well, everybody remembers the Tiger King, right?
Tiger King, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, his outfit was about 40 miles away from where I researched.
Oh.
Okay. Well, when they shut down and throwed him in prison or whatever, the people that took it over moved it within, and I had no idea, within about 1.5 miles of where I researched.
Oh.
When they got shut down, they had 17 cats going accounted. 17 big cats going accounted for.
Oh no, that's terrible.
And so, and they've had reported tiger sightings down there. That's what these police were telling me.
Oh.
So we're like, oh, okay. Well, that kind of spoiled the mood, and they left, and because we were doing nothing wrong. But one thing weird about it was the reason they were there was they had gotten reports of 5 to 7 women in an SUV that were out there all dressed in black sacrificing chickens.
Oh dear.
And there's a lot of occult activity out there.
Sure.
Hence, I think a lot of the bad juju energy going on out there. But we obviously were not that coven of witches.
Right.
So we go back to camp, and we're telling Jason about what's going on, and we find Jason in his car with his 44 in his hand.
Oh no.
And we're like, what's going on? He says, man, I don't know. He goes, I was sitting here, everything was fine. And he said, oh, I got this sudden, just overwhelming feeling that my life was in danger.
Oh.
He goes, no reason. I didn't hear nothing. I didn't see nothing. He goes, it was just overwhelming fear. And he goes, but it's gone now. I'm like, okay, well, that's weird. And then we proceed to tell him what just happened to us. And he had seen, unbeknownst to him at the time, the black SUV that they were looking for when he came in earlier that evening.
Oh, okay.
So I told him about the whole tiger situation and everything. He goes, that's what you ran into that night, that eye shine. Now think about what I said when I was walking up the trail. Oh, I just heard a growl with a little purr to it.
Right. Oh no. Good God.
So yeah, that's one of the non-paranormal things that I've had happen to me up there. But anyway, go back when I first started and everything. We so many experiences, man. It's just crazy. We, we were up there one night. I talked to the old boy to going up there one night, and he had a couple of guys that had came down. One of them was from Austin. The other one was from Denmark. He was over here traveling the country on foot and staying in people's backyards and stuff like that, on couches and everything. Just, hey, can I, blah, blah, blah. But somehow they had hooked up, and so they wanted to go out, and so I met them up there, and we went up to the cemetery at night, and we're walking through the cemetery, and we're in a single file line, and I'm leading, and then all of a sudden, I get dizzy, I get weak, I break out in a cold sweat, I get pale, and I stop. Everybody kind of walks past me, and I'm leaning I'm hugging a tree, and they turn around and go, "Man, what's wrong with you? You look, just all the color is gone." And I'm like, "I don't know. I feel like I'm fixing to pass out."
Mm.
And honestly, I didn't know if I was having a heart attack or what.
Right.
And I said, "I think I'm going to go back down to the truck and sit down and get some water and everything. But y'all don't have to go with me. Y'all continue on and everything." They said, "Well, if one of us goes, we all go." I'm like, "Okay, well, that ain't going to work because y'all came a long way. I'm not going to spoil this for you. Just give me a few minutes. We'll see if it gets any better." About, I don't know, it wasn't long, about 5, 7 minutes later, I felt fine.
Oh,
In fact, I felt better than I did before.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, and I'm like, "Okay, well, here we go." And so we start going again. And we're walking through on the outskirts of the cemetery, and we're walking through the woods, and we come across this big cedar tree, probably 40 feet tall, and all the limbs have been stripped off of this thing on one side up to about 15 feet.
Oh, okay.
And not cut, stripped off, and they're laying down at the bottom, piled up, and something has been bedding on them.
Oh,
Now, cedar is a natural bug repellent.
sure.
That's why they build cedar chest. Okay.
Yep.
So, but something had been bedding in these things on all these cedar limbs. I'm like, okay, this is what, because me, when I see something that's odd, a tree break or whatever, I try to come up with a natural reason that this has occurred.
Sure.
I don't just jump to, "Oh, that Bigfoot did it."
Good.
There's too much of that out there.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there sure is.
I am not a proponent of red circles. That's my nemesis. So anyway, I'm thinking, what in the world could have done this? Well, if it was human, they'd have cut the limbs off. They wouldn't have broke all these limbs off. We have the occasional small black bear up there.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that leave you?
Right.
So anyway, this is all cool and everything. So we start walking again, and I spot this game trail that leads off of the back of the cemetery back there, going down the hill. And it's a big game trail. And I said, "Hey, let's go down this game trail." And we're single file. There's 4 of us, and I'm in the lead. And the old boy that set all this up, he's in the back. And I kid you not, I take 2 steps towards that game trail. And we felt it as much as we heard it. Right. I mean, and I hear from the back, "Time to go."
Yeah, that's a good time to go.
So we go out, and we go back down, and we're camped diagonal across the street from, or gravel road across from the cemetery. So we get back down to camp. Now, this campsite we're using is the same campsite where I had my first sighting. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we're all sitting around the campfire and everything. And I'm not a proponent of this, guys, but they had the music on and, whatever. I don't go camping to listen to music.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I go camping. I get out in the woods to listen to nature, get closer to nature.
Right.
So they got music playing. We're all sitting around the campfire talking. And out of the freaking blue, we hear this god awful freaking scream. And it was just so loud. And it wasn't a big cat. It wasn't, it wasn't a peacock. It wasn't, it wasn't any of that stuff that I could think of. It wasn't, anything that I'd ever heard. Okay. And I'm not saying I've heard everything, because that's one of my pet peeves too. You get these guys that, well, I've been out in the woods for 40 years. I've never seen a Bigfoot, or I've never heard this. And
right.
I'm like, or this made this sound. I'd never heard that, but it had to be a Bigfoot. No.
Right.
Just because you've been out that long doesn't mean you've heard every noise that every animal can make.
Right.
But just because you've been hunting for 40 years and you haven't seen a Bigfoot doesn't mean they're not out there. It just means you didn't see one.
Right. Yep.
I almost guarantee you they saw you. But anyway, and just God, and I don't know what or why, but when I heard it, I automatically thought female.
Oh, okay.
And so two of us heard it over the music, and we stood straight up. We got our chair, stood up straight, looked over the campfire. Did you hear that? Yeah, I heard that, type thing. So he runs and turns the music down, and we sit there. And about 20 minutes later, it cooks off again, but it had changed locations. And with everything that happened up there with us getting growled at, getting a lot of people say I got zapped, with the infrasound thing. That's very possible. Okay. But there again, the effects of the high EMF will mirror the effects of, infrasound on you also.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't have an EMF meter with me.
Sure.
So I don't know. But with everything that we saw, the tree and getting growled at and me getting quote unquote zapped, and then we hear the two screams, when does it stop being a coincidence?
Sure. Yeah.
Type thing.
Yep.
But yeah, that's one of the crazier nights that I've had up there. I've took a friend of mine down there one time. He wanted to go out with me, and we're using the same campsite. I used this campsite for a long time because I had so much activity in it.
Uh-huh.
And I remember we were talking about Carrie Arnold earlier.
Sure.
And I was down there by myself one night, and I'm sitting there, and this place has got pigs all over it, wild pigs all over it. And they can be very, very deadly. They really can. They're ornery critters. So I'm sitting there in camp by myself, and I start hearing stuff, right beside, coming up right in that little thin cheer line right up to my camp. And I thought, man, I don't want to mess with no dadgum pigs. I didn't have a gun with me. I'm like, I don't want to spend the night and, either sitting in my truck waiting on them to leave, or treating the back of my truck, waiting on them to leave or whatever.
Sure.
So, excuse me. So I just packed up and left about 12:30 at night. And I'm driving home, and I called Kerry, and 'cause I knew he was working nights, and I knew he was at work. So I called Kerry, and he goes, "Well, how'd it go? Or how's it going?" I said, "I don't know. I just left." He goes, "What? Why'd you leave?" He goes, "Did you get scared?" I said, "No, I didn't get scared." I told him, I said, "Man," I said, "I'm sitting there in camp. I had, heard what I think was probably a couple of pigs walking up there, rooting around or whatever." And, well, they didn't sound like they were rooting. They were just walking. And it dawned on me when I'm having this conversation with Kerry. I said, "Kerry," because Kerry was a hunter. I was a hunter for a long time. I said, "Kerry, have you ever heard pigs be quiet and walk up on you?" He goes, "No." I said, "Me either." He goes, "Oh man." He goes, "You know what that was, don't you?" Crap. So we're pretty sure that it was one or two of these Bigfoot that would, there's a little rise right there where I camped, and it kind of dips down on the other side, and that's where they were coming from.
Wow.
And we surmised that they were probably belly crawling up that
That embankment.
yeah, that little ditch right there. And I'm like, crap, I missed that, So I was mad at myself. But then anyway, I had a guy go out with me one time, and we get there, same campsite. We said, really wasn't nothing going on. We had about, I don't know, an hour till dark. Well, let's go walk around the bottoms a little bit. So we go walk into the bottoms, and we get down there, and we found something really cool. It was a big, big oak tree, and it had been blown over. I'm not saying Bigfoot pushed it over.
Sure.
It had been blown over or whatever. But underneath this tree was an area that was dug out.
Oh.
That was probably 5 feet deep and probably 10 foot long and 4 feet wide. I mean, it looked like somebody dug a foxhole.
Right.
It didn't look like it didn't look like it had been washed out by floodwaters, because if it had, there would have been some more. You could have seen where the water had swirled around on that time, but you didn't see that. It was just the hole right underneath this tree. And I'm like, man, this is weird. This almost looks like a hunting blind, and it's on a game trail. Like, this is cool.
Uh-huh.
So we're standing there and we're talking. He goes, "Man, I kind of figured we'd have more action than this. We hadn't had anything happen." I said, "Well," I said, "I can try to stir," and I don't do this, people. This was the stupidest thing, one of the stupidest things I've ever done. I did a lot of stuff. People say there's a fine line between bravery and stupidity. I've jumped back and forth across that line many a time. This is one of them. I said, "Well, I can try to stir him up a little bit if you want." He goes, "Yeah, give it a shot." I said, "All right." So I let out 2 real aggressive grunts and beat my chest.
Oh, okay.
And his eyes got as big around as saucers, and he looked at me and he goes, "What the F did you just do to us?"
Wait a minute.
I'm going back to camp. And he turned around and left me standing and went back to camp. And I'm laughing. And I said, "All right." I said, so I started to follow him. And then over to my left, a little ways off, I hear thump, thump, thump.
Oh, no.
Now, if you've ever heard somebody slap sand, that's what it sounded like. So what I think happened when I did that, I don't know if whatever it was, I think it jumped out of a tree. And and whatever it was big, and it hit that sand, and it, thump, 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 those are footfalls. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, So we go back to camp, and we're sitting around camp, and nothing really is happening. And we heard some stuff, but nothing real definitive. And we decided we're going to rack it, go ahead and lay down. Well, he had set up a hammock right beside my truck, and I was going to sleep in the back of the truck. So I crawl up in the back of my truck, and I'm laying facing out and watching the campfire. And he crawls in his hammock. It's totally enclosed hammock,
Sure.
And I start hearing this through the trees. I'm like, and I start looking, and we got almost a full moon, and I'm looking, and I start seeing these little things sailing through the trees.
Oh, it's throwing rocks.
It's throwing little pebbles, and they're sailing through the tops of the trees at us.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh, this is all right, Well, then they start dinging his hammock with them.
Oh no.
Well, so he got what he was looking for. He got some action, but it was funny because about the same time that this was happening, I hear something over on the side of my truck coming through the leaves, and I listened for a little bit, and I thought, oh, okay, I know what that is. Well, he didn't, and he comes out of his hammock with pistol in hand. What is it? What is it? What is it? And here comes this armadillo. Scared the hell out of him.
Oh no!
And so and to this day, I tease him about a squatchadillo. So,
sounds like a great T-shirt design.
Right. But yeah, it's the place never disappoints. I mean, there's been probably half a dozen people that went in there with me and had their first sighting. Wow. Brandy had her first sighting up there with me.
Oh, fantastic.
Brandy from Blondes and Booze.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah. In fact, we saw it at the same time. We sat there and watched it.
So let me ask you, Tex, because it is always a curiosity to me, and knowing that we know so incredibly little about these things, other than the feelings of caution where you went, okay, well, we should probably get out of here. Did you ever fear for your life? I mean, because what if they did attack, and what recourse would you have? I mean, they could dispatch us in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
where were you at with it when you're having these encounters?
Well, the thing about it is, I look at it this way. Same way I looked at my Dogman encounter after I had it, after I got over this whole shock of the initial thing. This thing wanted to kill me. It could have.
Okay.
It had been in the area for a long time, a few years.
Fair enough. Yeah.
It never bothered me. I don't think it was meaning for me to even see it that night in the first place, or that day in the first place.
Okay.
I look at the same thing with Bigfoot, because we hear about the person going missing or whatever and that type of thing. And we hear about attacks, and I mean, it does happen.
Okay.
But if they I'm not gonna stop doing something I love, which is camping and getting out there, just because something might happen.
Sure.
Yeah. I think something really has to go sideways with them for them to get to that point, because
probably,
I think they're just as different as you and I. There are, I'll use this. I think they're raised up different to have different tolerances for humans. No different than this. Say these. Okay, bear with me here. Imagine you're going down to South America. Okay, you're going down the Amazon. Okay, you're going down there in your little boat. You see a little village. Okay, you paddle up to this little village. You walk in. They treat you like a god and treat you to a feast and open arms and all that kind of stuff. Say your goodbyes. You get in your little boat. You go about 5-10 miles down the river. See another little village. You're like, oh, this is cool. You roll up and walk into the village. And you are the feast.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's the same thing. If Grandpa Bigfoot was shot in the ass back in the day, he raised up everybody else not to be friendly to us, and then with that type of thing. But I think overall, they're curious.
Okay.
I think we're their entertainment. I don't think they are, these monsters waiting behind every tree. There are people out there in this field that consider these things monsters.
Right.
And personally, I just think they need to get over their own fear, because I'm still alive and kicking, and I've been up close and personal with these things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if they wanted to kill me, and anybody and I don't want to scare anybody really, but if you've been out in a state or national park or out camping out in the boondocks, more than likely they've been around.
Right.
Right back to what we was talking about earlier. I've been hunting 40 years. I've never seen a Bigfoot. Yeah, but they probably saw you.
Yeah.
I think. So, I just don't think can they be dangerous? Yeah. But they're no different than any other apex predator that's out there.
Sure.
I was in more danger with that damn tiger than I was a Bigfoot.
Yeah, I just can't.
Okay.
You walked right by it. Oh my God. That's just, it's the weird part about that story is that you're like, wow, that's weird. That's a weird sound. But then later you find out, wow, there's 17 large cats that are unaccounted for. It's like, oh,
yeah.
Then that's 400 or 500 pounds of all muscle, claws, and teeth. There's not a damn thing you could do if they were going to, come after you. No. And much the same, I think, for these cryptids as well. If they were, you're right. If they were motivated to hurt us, we would be just missing in the woods. Now, there are people that go missing in the woods, and perhaps that's a percentage of them. But I think you're right. The body of reports and encounters that people have are largely benign. Like they'll come in and curious, or maybe even harass people out of a place, and even shadowing them in the woods and stuff, but they don't go out of their way to hurt and to cause people to lose their lives. So I got to give it to you there. I think you're absolutely right that if they wanted us done, we would have been done. Yeah. So why would they wait around and just give us all these encounters? They obviously don't want to hurt us for the most part, but like you say,
for the most part,
there are individuals, and you never know what their experience is. Maybe their, mom lost the use of a limb because some guy went, "What's that? I don't know. Let's shoot it." And, they probably, there's plenty of stories to suggest that they're very familiar with what our, firearms are. But yeah, it's curious, isn't it? You talked about them being intelligent. What would you equate their intelligence to that of a child, or maybe somewhere rivaling us, or some other kind of intelligence than what we're used to?
I think they're on par with killer whales.
Okay.
And I've taken a lot of flack over that stance over the years, but I stand by it, because most people that argue with me do not realize the intelligence level of a killer whale, or the awareness. They are self-aware.
Sure.
They grieve. They almost have funerals. They're strategic. They teach other killer whales. They'll have a pod come in from another part, and they'll teach them how to hunt, because they hunt differently all over the world.
Sure.
And if you look at the 2 or 3 killer, I can't remember what it was, 2 or 3 killer whales that were, there was a sea lion on a chunk of ice.
Yeah.
Do you know what video I'm talking about?
Where they're creating a wave to wash it off.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me that's not intelligent.
Oh,
Tell me that's not
absolutely.
strategic. They had to not only figure this out, that this would do that, they had to coordinate
Yeah.
to do that.
So there's
So,
communication, there's strategy, there's planning, there's all,
yeah,
and then there's execution, and everybody knows their job. So yeah, that is
yeah.
really incredible.
And not only that, it's forward thinking because they know what's going to happen. They know what this is going to cause,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think they're right up there with killer whales. Um, I think if killer whales could walk, we'd have another cryptid on the planet, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where I put it.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. And it's again, it's speculative, but you know, you're right.
Yeah,
There's certainly plenty of examples of them. And I always think about the psychological warfare that Bigfoot are attributed to. You know, I mean, they start out with maybe some odd sounds around a camp. Maybe the next night they'll kind of come in and circle tents and stuff like that. And then the next night they
right.
might throw pine cones, and then but it's this escalation. If they want you out of an area, it seems like they extraordinarily excel at this psychological pressure. They don't let people get comfortable. Never. You don't sleep. You'll be sleeping with one eye open kind of thing because you don't know what's going on, but they continue to raise the pressure and the pressure until people are like, screw it, we're out of here. Let's get out of here. This just feels dangerous. And so to me that's masterful. I mean, it really is almost with a military precision, the way that they drill and dial it up until people just crack and they're like, nope, we're out of here. I can't do this. This is not safe. And they leave, so they do get what they want. And it is very strategic. So I'm with you. I think that's a pretty fair assessment, brother.
Like I said earlier, a lot of people consider these things monsters and some even evil, and I've heard the word demonic thrown around, and but I think they're a physical creature. I don't necessarily believe, or I don't want to say that. I don't at this point, I don't think they're paranormal in nature or supernatural.
Okay.
Or have those abilities. I just don't.
Okay.
Because I haven't seen any evidence of it.
Sure.
When we start talking about the whole mind speak thing, and there's a lot of people, a lot of good, dear friends of mine that I respect tremendously have had these interactions, encounters, whatever you want to call them, with this. And it worries me because paranormal 101, spirits are going to lie to you.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. How many times have we heard and even been involved in paranormal investigations where you get a child coming across or you get a loved one coming across?
Yeah.
They know your mind. And if you're out there looking for this thing and you're not being shy about it, I mean, a lot of people running around the woods going, here, Bigfoot, Bigfoot, Bigfoot. I mean, why wouldn't these things, these entities, these spirits, if you will, speak to you and tell you they're Bigfoot to get their foot in the door?
Fair enough. Yeah.
If they know that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And all it takes is an invitation. And I've had conversations with these people that have had these experiences. And my first question is, how do you know it's Bigfoot? And I get generally one or two answers. Either they tell me, or they told me it was, or I just know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's not a good enough answer.
Right.
For me, if I start hearing voices in my head that aren't mine, I'm going to, that would worry me. Okay. Anything else, seeing apparitions or getting EVPs and all this kind of stuff, getting touched or scratched or anything, that voice inside my head that does not belong to me, that would worry me above anything else.
Mm.
And I just don't think that now I know the Native Americans, I know they tell us that these Bigfoot people, and they call them people,
Sure,
are a spiritual being. But think about it. This is traditions and this is histories that are passed on throughout over hundreds, if not thousands of years. Okay. Maybe they did not know the difference between, the two. So they automatically assume that and if these creatures or if these entities are telling them that that's what they are, well, hey, why wouldn't they have that belief that they're spiritual creatures? I'm just not there. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't me and you both, we get told a lot of encounters, with Bigfoot, paranormal, the whole 9 yards. I'm not going to tell anybody they didn't have an experience, because I don't care if they had an experience. That just because I don't believe in that portion of it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. Just because it didn't happen to me doesn't mean it didn't happen. Okay. And I'm not going to call anybody a liar. I'm not going to call anybody crazy. I want to give them a safe platform where they can talk about this stuff. It's not my job to judge them. It's my job to give them a platform. And and by giving them a platform, maybe that's the wrong term, because I don't want people to go away with listening to this thinking, oh, he just wants people on his show or anything like that. That's not what I want. I don't care if you come on my show. But if you have an encounter that you really need to get off your chest, I'll listen to you.
Yeah.
You don't have to come on the show. That's not what that's not what I'm after.
Right.
I just want to give some person a safe place to go.
Yeah.
Because you can't talk about it
right.
anywhere.
Well, the thing is that, and I'm with you. There's a lot of claims that are made. I'm not saying that they're impossible personally. It's just, I can't wrap my head around it, and I don't know what to do with it. And so for me personally, I don't know how to get there. And you're right. I think you really, as a person, as an observer, you almost have to see something like that happen or experience that firsthand to really get a grasp of it. But I've never seen, a Bigfoot melt away. I've never actually seen a Bigfoot ever. But if that is the case, and I don't doubt people are having the experiences they're having, but we do have these shows, but we also have our own paradigm. And I wrestle with my own paradigm all the time when, cover things that I'm not quite on board with or I'm not quite familiar with. That's not me saying, you're full of garbage. I don't think you're being sincere or honest or whatever. It's just me saying, but I don't understand. And that's okay. Not everybody's going to be at the same place with this stuff, and we all have our personal takes on it, but it's still offering people the opportunity, a place where they can discuss it and be with largely like-minded people, or at least people that are open to possibilities. So, Tex, it's been an absolute pleasure, brother. You and I could talk all day. We could do an 8-hour show in a marathon. There's no question, but I want you to take some time and plug people into where to keep in touch with you, because I'm going to be on your show later and I want people to know where to go.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You can find me on YouTube, Texas Front Porch, and that's TEX''S because of my front porch. And anywhere you can find a podcast, really. But it's not just me, folks. You need to go over to Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, Blondes and Booze, Our Paranormal World, Paranormal Among Us. There's a bunch of those. I have an extended family,
Yeah, you do.
and don't forget, Paranormal Portal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but we are all kind of I call us the island of misfit toys. But yeah, that's where you can find me at. You can also watch what is it, Dogman Triangle, Werewolves of Lone Star State, or from Small Town Monsters. I was on that.
Oh, really? Oh, fantastic.
Yeah,
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I just saw that on I think it was Prime. And I was like, oh, I should watch that, but I wanted to do it when I got a chance to really sit down and focus on it. So I haven't watched it yet, but I was like, oh, this looks great. And I haven't even another reason to do it. I mean, I think Seth does some great work. Their productions are really top notch over there. And he's been on the show as well, and just a great guy. But yeah, I'm going to have to watch that. I did not know you were on there, but I'm going to for sure check it out. So, but thanks again, brother. It's been an epic discussion as always. Now we've covered Bigfoot and Dogman, so the next time you come back, we're diving into the ghosts.
That'll work. Yeah.
These are very thematic shows that we do together, apparently. So,
yeah. Because I got to tell you, even on the Bigfoot side of things, we didn't barely scratch the surface of what I've had.
Oh, I'm with you. I can tell that you've got a whole encyclopedia of events up in your head. So, but thanks again, brother. It's been a real pleasure, and we'll definitely get you back and continue these discussions.
Thank you, man. I love you, brother.
Love you too, Tex. Thanks again, brother.